can an attorney really defend me if I'm arrested for DUI? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Okay, so DUIs, we've done quite a bit of exploration of that. So let's look today, I guess we're looking at a particular type of field sobriety test, right? What is it called?
Right. So, I get the question all the time, how can you really help me if I got arrested for a DUI? What can you really do? And what people don't understand is that a DUI investigation is really multi-layered and quite involved. And so officers are trained to do what's called a standardized field sobriety test. And why it's called standardized is if you think of, like in school when you take a standardized test, say everybody across the state of Wyoming has to take the same test in high school, it is supposed to be the same for a DUI investigation. It's supposed to be standardized, and the officers are trained to do it a very specific way. And one of those tests that they conduct is called the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, and that's the eye test.
Okay, so in the eye test, I looked a little bit up on this. This is the eye test in which they hold like a pen or something and move it to the side, and you're supposed to just follow it with your eyes without moving your head. Is that the test?
Right, and really what they're looking for is this knee-jerk reaction. That is, if you've consumed alcohol, and specifically you're above a 0.08, your eyes will give that away. There's nothing you can do to stop it, and so this is kind of the gold standard for officers in determining whether they have enough evidence to arrest you for a DUI, and it's the gold standard for the judges. If the officer says, they failed this test, then it's really hard to say, hey, they didn't have enough evidence to make the arrest. But you have to look at how they did this test very closely.
Yeah, and in my little bit of research on this, there's 18 different aspects to this one test, and I won't necessarily read all of them, but like you say, standardization is one of the elements of this. The 45-degree angle that the eyes are supposed to move has to be exactly 45 degrees. The person can't be wearing eyewear. The horizontal path of the pen has to be exactly right. It has to be exactly at the right height. The head of the person being tested has to be at the right height. It goes on and on. There's 18 parts, and this is only one of the field sobriety tests anyway. So where have you seen, maybe in your experience, an example of where this goes wrong and affects the outcome for the alleged criminal?
Well, I've seen it countless times, but I have a very black and white example, and that is my client was arrested for DUI, obviously, but this was a sad set of circumstances. He was driving on a 2-lane highway in Wyoming at dusk. He was passing a semi, and the sun was in his eyes just the right amount where he had a hard time seeing in front of him, and in fact a motorcycle was traveling toward him. The motorcycle was in the correct lane and he was passing, and he ended up hitting the motorcycle accidentally head on. And so law enforcement came to the scene, obviously, and questioned him and ran him through field sobriety tests to see if he had in fact been drinking. Unfortunately, he had a cooler in the back of his pickup that had beer in it. They were closed containers. This isn't illegal, but that raised the suspicion of the officer. And so the officer takes him through field sobriety tests, one of which was the HGN. Now, in this particular case, the officer is saying that he's seeing this knee-jerk reaction when he does the test. The eyes will bounce, and that bouncing will start prior to 45 degrees if the person is under the influence of alcohol, and specifically over a 0.08. Now, he's saying he observes this. what's the fallacy in this is that we've got the ambulance lights flashing, we've got his emergency lights flashing, and it's at night, and he's having my client do this test, and he's saying he's observing this knee-jerk reaction when really those flashing lights will cause someone's eye to do something very similar. And he's saying he's seeing this knee-jerk reaction prior to 45 degrees, and he's seeing a bouncing out here, when he holds his pen as far to the right or to the left as he can, and keep the client's eye on the pen. They call that the stimulus. And, he's indicating that all of these clues are present. Well, come to find out, my client is arrested for a DUI. He goes to the detention center. He agrees to take a blood test. Well, all of his results come back 0. There's no drugs in his system. There's no alcohol in his system. Yet the officer has reported that, he's failed this HGN test.
So it sounds like, just according to the list that I was reading, he's already made several mistakes in that test.
Well, the officer's reporting that he's seeing those mistakes. Now, the officer has some bias. He thinks my client's been drinking. There's alcohol, closed containers of alcohol in the cooler in the back of his pickup. And so, he's attributing what he's observing to my client having consumed alcohol, when really the environment is causing some of these clues to be present, and I would argue some of the clues were not present. There's no way that he failed this test when he had no alcohol in his system. So there was some bias there with the officer. The conditions, he should have had all of the lights turned off. That there shouldn't be flashing lights when he's conducting this test. So this just goes to prove, officers will report one thing, and I know this happens all the time, but in this particular case, it's certain that the officer did this test incorrectly, and he reported observing clues that he did not observe. And so, this isn't the only time it's ever happened. It's just when I have black and white proof that he's wrong.
Yes, and this is the kind of thing, again, a person's not going to be able to figure out on their own. So they need a lawyer to look into this and all of the other many, many ways that these field sobriety tests can go awry and not be in favor of your clients. So how does someone get in touch with you?
We'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.